NFL Power Rankings. We do it every Tuesday here at the show, and certainly looking forward to doing it here today as well as I get this thing pulled up here. 10-1, our Power Rankings here this week. Not a ton of change at the top. And as always, get in the comment section. This video goes up by itself every week on YouTube. Get in the live chat right now. Let me know your thoughts. A lot of people laughing at me for last week having the Patriots there at number 1, but here they are. They just kind of beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, here we go as we do our power rankings here, and I get Keegan's social off there. All right, on the fly, here we go. Week 11 power rankings, and we'll start it off with the number 10 spots. And there were 2 teams that were candidates to be the number 10 team here for me this week. Look, I've been high on the Bills this year. A lot of people have. They have Josh Allen. He's an incredible talent, an incredible quarterback. You always have a chance when you have Josh Allen. But they just went down to South Beach, and they didn't just lose that game, right? They didn't just lose by a field goal. They got absolutely worked in that football game by a Miami Dolphin team who a lot of people think their head coach is about to get fired, and they have absolutely nothing to play for, and their GM just got fired. So to go in there and lose the way they did is not good, and I think there is a real argument for Buffalo not being on this list here this week. And the team that I was going back and forth with is the Los Angeles Chargers, who had a big-time win against Pittsburgh. The Chargers have a 7-3 record. They look like a formidable force in the AFC West. But I think the reason I gave the Bills the nod is just because the tackle situation for the Los Angeles Chargers is not good. Obviously, they lost Slater before the year. They've lost Joe Alt. And whenever you lose both of your starting tackles, like, you're in a really tough spot as a professional football team. So credit to the Chargers for picking up a gutsy win. They dominated that game against the Steelers. I still look at them as a playoff team here at this point, but I'm not quite able to put them ahead of the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen just because of that tackle situation. But let me be very clear. What happened with the Buffalo Bills last week is not good. And, if you're a Bills fan, I don't know if you're full out hitting the panic button, but you're definitely concerned, to say the least. At number 9, I have the Denver Broncos. Last week, I had them at number 10. I bump them up here one spot. They won an ugly game on Thursday Night Football, 10-7 against the Raiders, who are just a complete train wreck. The Broncos, they have an 8-2 record. Credit to them for that. They look like a lock to make the playoffs here at this point. They got the best or the second best defense in the National Football League. But let's be clear here. If they don't fix things offensively or show drastic signs of improvement, they're going to be a one and done in the playoffs. They're going to get there. Oh, congrats. Maybe you won the division. You get your hat, get your T-shirt, and then get blasted in round 1 if you're the Denver Broncos. Look, I was high on Bo Nix when they took him. I think he can get this thing turned around, but you cannot dispute the fact that he has regressed. If there's anybody that can get him back on track, it is Sean Payton. But this isn't just ranking teams based on standings here. You can't look at Denver and say they're a top 5 team here at this point. Yeah, they're a top 1, top 2 defense. But we're talking full team here with a quarterback, and I just can't put Denver above the 9th spot. Credit to them. They found ways to win games, have 8 wins on the year, but I don't see how you can put them above 9 here at this point. And I also don't see how you can put them above this team here at number 8, despite the fact they have a significantly better record. The Chiefs had them at 9 last week. They get bumped up a spot this week, despite the fact they didn't play a football game. A lot of people would say, all right, you got the Chiefs ahead of the Broncos. You're crazy. But a winner-take-all game, you seriously think the Denver Broncos are going to beat the Chiefs right here, right now, based on how they're performing offensively? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, the Chiefs, their schedule isn't easy. They've dropped some games. They need to get hot. One thing is for certain, AFC Championship not going to be played at Arrowhead Stadium. I would be absolutely shocked if that were the case. And obviously that you can usually just book it for the Chiefs to host that game each and every year. Not going to be the case here this year. Obviously they went to Baltimore a couple of years ago there as well. But they're going to have to go on the road. Obviously they're a threat with Mahomes and Andy Reid. I understand that. But, I've got them at the 8th spot. Some people might say it's a little high. I bumped them up from one spot and they didn't play. I get that. But, they hung in there against Buffalo. But then again, Buffalo just lost to the Miami Dolphins. But I think if you have the Chiefs outside your top 10, you're just a hater at that point. And by the way, that's okay. That's completely fine if that is the case. Tampa, I have them at 7. Last week I had them at 6. They lost, but they only get bumped down one spot. The Patriots, I think, are the best team in football right now, and they lost a one-possession game to them. Biggest concern with them is just injuries, right? Baker has lost a little bit of his MVP love here at this point. He, by the way, is banged up for this Buccaneers team. Ibuka is tremendous. He is right there as far as Rookie of the Year goes with another guy who we'll talk about here in a second that plays tight end. But I know Mike Evans really hurts them, and you just ask Ibuka to do so much, which he can. But I'm not quite as high on them without Mike Evans, but they're clearly a top 10 team. That's not a bad loss at all, despite the fact it was at home. Maybe some question marks a little bit there defensively. I don't fully trust their head coach, Todd Bowles, for what it's worth, but I still look at Tampa as a team that's going to win that division and probably win a playoff game there in the process. So a little bit lower on them without Mike Evans, but I'm not beating them up for losing to the New England Patriots, despite the fact it was at home. At 6, I've got the Indianapolis Colts. Last week I had them at 5. They get bumped down one spot despite winning in Berlin against the Atlanta Falcons. Said this earlier in the week. Daniel Jones kind of looked like Daniel Jones in that game, which isn't a good sign if you're the Indianapolis Colts. And I just think they're so reliant on running the football with Jonathan Taylor, who's definitely an MVP candidate here at this point. That's really my biggest concern with them is maybe they're a little bit more one-dimensional than I thought. Daniel Jones did not play well in that game against Atlanta. Credit to him. He was still able to win the football game, but they get knocked down a little bit in my power rankings despite beating the Falcons last week, Sunday morning. 5, I got the Detroit Lions. Very interesting. We haven't really talked about this on the show much so far this week, but Dan Campbell was calling the plays. Took that away from John Morton. And, I think that's certainly very interesting. And a guy that never really has called plays, and Dan Campbell, all of a sudden he's calling plays, and they're hanging 40-plus points, granted against a bad Commander defense. But, that just shows you the brilliance there of Dan Campbell. It will be very interesting to see if that continues. But the Lions are very much a threat. That running attack, man, Jahmyr Gibbs, that guy's one of the best players in the NFL. And people were banging on Brad Holmes and the Lions. Oh, you're taking a running back this early in the draft. Well, they hit that pick out of the park. And when you have a guy like Gibbs, who's on the field, obviously, with a bunch of other professional athletes, and he looks like considerably freakier and faster and more athletic than the professional athletes that he's on the field with, that says a lot. And Jahmyr Gibbs is an unbelievable football player. Goff's doing his thing, not turning the ball over. Jamison Williams, guy can absolutely fly. Oh, by the way, didn't even mention Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have an edge rusher. Hutchinson can absolutely get after the passer. Lions, people had question marks about them early in the year after that loss to Green Bay, but they're clearly, to me, a top 5 team in the NFL. So are the Seattle Seahawks. Have them at number 4. Last week I had them at 7. They jump all the way up to the number 4 spot. They beat the crud out of the Arizona Cardinals 44-22. They're 7-2 on the year. Mike McDonald, he is a great young coach. What he's done in a couple of years is tremendous. John Schneider, one of the best GMs in football. That defense is young, athletic. They fly around. They scored twice in the game against Arizona, and they basically were like, Sam, you're having a great year, but we don't really need you in this game. We'll just turn around and hand the football off, control the clock, bleed the clock, and they dominated from start to finish. But great acquisition, signing Sam Darnold. JSN was a 1. He had the ability to be a 1, and they saw that, and they said, yep, we can move off an older DK Metcalf who can be, he can be eliminated from some games, right? And you're seeing that in Pittsburgh a little bit there as well. And he's just been tremendous, JSN. You trade for Shaheed. Darnold's playing at a high level. You're running the football. This Seattle team is real, and it's going to be fascinating to see them battle with the Rams down the stretch here in the NFC West. At number 3, I have the Philadelphia Eagles, top 3, by the way, exactly the same as last week. The Eagles, it's not always pretty, right? The tush-push, it's frustrating. We all hate it, but, they're good at it, and they pick up yardage when they do it. I thought Jalen Hurts made several really good throws last night, and for whatever reason, there's always players like this through sports where they're just really, really good, and they don't get the credit that they deserve. Jalen Hurts is a top-of-the-line quarterback. He's absolutely tremendous. He made a lot of great throws in the game last night. He had kind of the kill shot throw there to Devontae Smith that put him up 10-0 at the time. Sirianni did some really foolish things, which we'll touch on at the end of today's show if we have some time. But Jalen Hurts is an incredible quarterback. The run game's starting to open up a little bit more for him. Howie added, he tried to fix the defense. They bring back BG. We'll see what he can do. Brandon Graham, of course. They drafted well. Jahad Campbell, we all said we wanted him here in Cincinnati. He's a star, right? He's great at that linebacker spot. They get after the passer. They're just a complete team with a really good quarterback. And, it's not always pretty with the Philadelphia Eagles, but more often than not, if you make it ugly against them, they're going to come out on top. And I've got Philly at number 3, same spot as last week. At number 2, same spot as last week, a team that actually lost to the Philadelphia Eagles early in the year. The LA Rams, they're unbelievable. Sean McVay is tremendous. Matthew Stafford and Davante Adams are finally finding kind of a rapport, and they look like one of the best tandems in the National Football League. Right? If you remember, Stafford basically missed all of camp, and then Davante obviously new to the team, so they very much were learning on the fly. That thing has gelled. That thing has come together. That thing looks really good. Puka is tremendous. Does he have some issues staying healthy? Maybe, but he just plays really physical, tough style of football, and it lends himself to getting banged up a little bit here. But obviously, if Nakua and Adams are healthy, that is a good sign. They can run the football, obviously, with Kyron Williams. They got youth on their defense. They're really good there as well. McVay, one of the best, if not the best head coach in the National Football League. Matthew Stafford, if the season ended today, I'm voting for him for MVP. So blown away by the Rams. Had him going to the NFC Championship before the year. I still believe that. And they're a really, really good football team, and Matthew Stafford is playing elite football. At 1, had him here last week, and they responded by going down to Tampa and picking up a big-time win. That is Drake May, Mike Vrabel, and the New England Patriots. I think they're tremendous. They're for real. I understand their schedule has been relatively weak. Obviously, it wasn't weak last week when they had to go down to Tampa Bay. Drake May made a couple of mistakes in that game. The interception in the end zone flat out can't happen. Kind of a young player type mistake there. Hopefully he learns from that and can respond there. But Vrabel's done a tremendous job. I've said it a million times on the show. The fact that he was available and the Titans fired him is just a complete and utter crime. He's an elite football coach. He's doing a great job. Travion Henderson was unlocked last week. They play good defense. They set the edge in the run game. They stop the run. They got guys that can cover. They tackle. They do all the little things right. Do you feel great if they're in a situation matched up with the Chiefs and maybe even the Bills, despite the fact they already beat the Bills this year? I don't know, but they're going to be good for a really long time as long as they have Drake May and Mike Vrabel. And I've got the Patriots at number 1 for back-to-back weeks here.